if I was hiring somebody like you coming out of the military, I would want the mindset that you just described. I would not want somebody who had worked at the wing level or the group level who said, I can do all of these things because I've done this here and I've sat in this office and I've, worked with all of these stakeholders across different branches and across different wings. And, I've mobilized all the, I'm not interested in that. I'm much more interested in the tactical, and I don't mean that in the military sense, but the tactical, practical type of work that you were doing more closely removed from your retirement. That's the kind of skill set. That's the kind of mindset that I would want as I'm hiring now.
Right. What's the difference between responsibility and value? We put huge levels of responsibility on the youngest possible person. You give me an E5 JTAC combat controller on his first deployment, and I will literally direct him to take human life. Like, that's what we do. The level of responsibility is crazy. Well, people kind of forget. And at those higher levels, and, to use the Trump weave here, there's a level of indoctrination that happens at those higher positions. They become highly political, and everything is we have to have 7 conferences, and people have to get together and have these high level conversations and utilize business terms and terminology. And, you don't see a lot of output from those things, right? That doesn't necessarily, that responsibility that you've had, you may be a commander of a unit somewhere. And if you're the commander of a special operations unit, you're literally training and equipping people to go kill America's enemies. That is our baseline function. That responsibility is not lost on me. That does not mean that you possess this inherent value in all of these other places. And people forget that. That's, to make a parallel to the political environment in which we're living. That's why there's so much hullabaloo over everybody that Trump is putting into these positions. If you look at Pete Hegseth, they're like, oh, well, he's a major and he has no idea what he's doing. He can't run the Secretary. I'll tell you what, he probably is a major with a couple of combat deployments and a Bronze Star. He probably understands the tactical maneuvering and all, of the military in general, and how it is that these people have just lost their way. When you talk about a flag officer, you talk about a brigadier general and up, man, those folks are politicians. They are politicians dressed up in military clothing. They are there to serve their political masters, and they're always trying to get to the next star, the next rank, the next place, the next rung on the ladder. Man, I joke that at E8 and at O5 in the military, you just get this lobotomy. Like, guys don't even talk the same anymore. And they get into all of these things. And that may be great if you're sitting in a weapons and tactics conference somewhere in Las Vegas, or if you're sitting in some of these other very high-minded conversations talking about your leadership philosophy and the like. That doesn't mean that you have value. It just means that you have a lot of responsibility. And people conflate that all the time. Plenty of authority, plenty of responsibility, but not a lot of value.
Yeah, I mean, we overvalue perceived perfection, right? So to use Hegseth as an example, it's like, fine, he'll make some mistakes. I'd rather he be in there making the mistakes that he's going to make aggressively,
yep,
than somebody else who is going to safely make some mistakes.
Right. And you
which
saw
inherently unsafe,
yeah,
in that position.
Yeah, and you kind of saw the same thing. Like, people freaked out about JD Vance. JD Vance is a freaking super genius. Graduated from the Ohio State University, got his law degree shortly afterwards, started a successful tech company, and then, was a congressperson, was a representative for 2 years, before 3 years, before he was tapped by President Trump. People freaked out. But that younger generation, those people that never get to where they're an established politician, the last person I want to see is some 65-year-old person that has been in these positions and been indoctrinated by the system. You need those disruptors. You need those people that have a mindset and a focus on the tactical level, because that's how they can bring value, because that's all they know.
Yeah. JD's a great example, right? Like, he was a combat camera, right? He was a
PAO. Yeah.
Combat correspondent. So served in the Marine Corps, came out of poverty, served in the Marine Corps, deployed, went to college, got into PE, got his law degree, got into tech, got into the Senate, wrote a book, wrote a memoir. They made a movie about it. And then he started campaigning to be the vice president, went on every podcast imaginable and sat down for 3 hours and had a real conversation with people, both people who liked him and people who didn't like him, and people who were just trying to gather information. we look at that and we say, oh, that's somebody who's tried a bunch of different things, has seen success in a bunch of different areas. And yes, they're not, what the legacy media, what the legacy citizenry would assume a vice president, quote unquote, should be. Well, it's like, I don't want what you think should be. I want somebody who's tried a bunch of different things to varying degrees of success and has made important decisions, critical decisions, and then reflects on those decisions and can explain why they made those decisions and why they've jumped from thing to thing to thing.